Thank you so much. Thank you, Susan. Thank you, Suzanne. Thank you, everyone who organized this event. It's really a great honor for me to be invited in this event to share some knowledge about traditional Chinese medicine. I'm very excited when I was informed that I'm going to be a speaker for this event. So, as a scientist who received training from the traditional Chinese medicine and also the modern science, I always feel it's very interesting, it's very important and also interesting to not only share the knowledge, but also reveal the nature of what traditional Chinese medicine is and make it work better for human health. This is the property not only belongs to Chinese people, but all the world. That's the reason today we have this public talk, Traditional Medicine from Grandma's Observation to Evidence-Based Science. I will make it like a story and very casual way. It's not a very formal scientific seminar, and just make it like a knowledge sharing, information sharing for people in the public. So when I prepare this talk, people ask me the concept. What is traditional medicine? What is traditional Chinese medicine? What is herbal medicine? So traditional Chinese medicine, or traditional medicine, actually is a broader scope. So according to the WHO, any kind of knowledge, skills, practice that used in medical practice or disease prevention and management that come from the culture and history, we call it traditional medicine. So the traditional Chinese medicine, I will use the term TCM, is the traditional medicine that come from the Chinese history and the culture. So the herbal medicine is any kind of traditional medicine that use herbs. So the three words, the relationship is like the figure I show here. So today we are more focused on the herbs that use in TCM. More specifically, we will talk about the history and then the good side and the bad side of using herbs in disease prevention and management. And also, I will use my research as example to tell you some of the scientific insight of herbal medicine, the natural product basis, and the mode of action. So this slide, I would like to deliver a message how the traditional Chinese medicine series, this whole knowledge was formed. It definitely takes thousands of years accumulation, but at the very, very beginning, it is coming from our grandma's observation. For example, this blueberry tastes good, made me happy. And this yellow flower is bitter and toxic. And our ancestors are also very good at, looking at the animals' behavior. Then they know that which plants are edible, which one are not. So these pieces of information and, the knowledges and experience come together and pass generation to generation at the very beginning with talking. And then later, documented this documentation in the bamboo, in the stone, and finally in the paper. And then later, some really smart people come to put all these pieces of information in documentation together and write and finish the compendium or the monograph. When the government's effort involved, it becomes a pharmacopoeia, a law. In addition of that, our grandma are also good at extract this piece of information into the serial philosophy. That's why in the traditional Chinese medicine, we have its very specific philosophy, like yin and yang and the 5 elements. We also have use the 5 tastes and 4 properties to describe the features of herbs to better grouping and give guidance to the practice. It sounds really complicated, and it is really complicated. You need to follow the very experienced TCM doctor for many, many, many years to know what is the nature of this and provide this medical practice on the patients. So today, I just give you a very general and brief idea how it looks like, how it comes from. So in this slide, I would like to talk about the history of the development of the herbal comedians. There are so many herbal comedians in the Chinese history. Some of them are still being used today. But these three ones are the most important ones, not only in China, but also in the world. The first one is we call the Shenlong's Herbal Classic. So this is probably the oldest and the earliest herbal comedians. I guess you guys might hear about the guy named Shenlong. So he used himself like a clinical trial to try hundreds of herbs to see whether its efficacy. That's probably the earliest clinical trial, but that's him. And in this very early herbal comedians, it have around 300 herbs. It has been 2,000 years. Many of them are still being used today. And then the second one I would like to mention is the Tang's Compendium. So this is actually the first pharmacopoeia in the Chinese history, and I believe it's also the world history. And the third one actually is the most famous one. The Chinese name is 本草纲目. You can type it in the Google, you can find it. So in the translation, it's called the Compendium of Materia Medica. This one is finished in the Ming Dynasty. It's also like 300 or 500 years ago. So this one is the most comprehensive herbal compendiums in today still. So in China, in the modern pharmacopoeia, has also the very specific section for the traditional Chinese medicine. So the first modern pharmacopoeia in China is published in 1950s after the new PRC China established. So it updates every 5 years. So it has thousands of species of the herbals in this current pharmacopoeia for the herbal section. So in this slide, I will talk a little bit more about how the use and regulation of the TCN herbs in China. Firstly, the raw material needs to be processed into the ready-to-use herbal slice. So the raw material look like this. And the slice, the product, the process to the ready-to-use herbal slice look like this. So this processing is normally in the manufacturer, which need to get a permit from the government saying, hey, I have the qualification to make it, because the government has the control on it to make sure it's safe. So the second point is that when you get sick, you see the TCM doctor. They will definitely diagnose with their philosophy, and then they will prescribe you the herbal formula, have a composition, different kind of herbs together. So it looks like this. So you can decide to pick the formula and cook it by yourself and drink it. Or you can just purchase the pharmaceutical products which is produced based on this formula if they are available. So also the TCM promotes the dietary therapy. So a lot of the TCM herbs, actually you can normally see in the Chinese cuisine and spice and whatever food or as functional food. So it's always considered that the TCM formula treatment are very moderate and very gentle, behave very slow, and also less toxic. So it's normally recommended to see the TCM doctor when you have a chronic disease, especially those very difficult to be diagnosed in the modern medicine and also have no treatment. And the last point I want to mention that all these herbal products in China are not regulated as food. They are regulated as OTC drugs. And all the manufacturers, if you label this as a medicinal purpose, you do need to submit a lot of paperwork to the CFDA to get approved and do the marketing and sales to patients. Okay, now we make some examples. So the examples of TCN herbs to prevent and manage disease. The first example I want to make is the obese type 2 diabetes and the related metabolic symptom. In Chinese medicine and the Chinese philosophy, this kind of disease, they call it yin-yang disharmony. In a healthy way, the yin and yang are balanced. So when you get these metabolic symptoms, yin and yang are not balanced. At the very early stage, even when your blood glucose is still in the normal range, the TCM doctors can already diagnose the yin and yang disbalance. Normally, for this early stage, the yang is more than the yin. So your body will present a series of heat symptoms. For example, you always feel very thirsty, very hungry, and irritated. And you have some chronic inflammation symptoms in your body. So the TCM doctors, they diagnose this through looking at your face, the color of your eyes, checking your tongue, the color of your tongue, and also touch your pulse. So it's complicated, but just an idea. So in the early stage of the type 2 diabetes, obese, and these metabolic symptoms, because the heat is excess and yang is more, so we need to have something to neutralize this extra heat. That's why the heat cleaning herbs are normally prescribed in the early stage of these metabolic symptoms. So the famous heat cleaning herb including the coctis root, bitter melon, and the lysicotis. So if the disease is not well controlled in the early stage, it will develop. And when this yin and yang keep on develop this balance, gradually both yin and yang are actually all decreased. Even if yang still more than yin, but your body actually into the situation becoming deficient, have a deficiency, become weak, your immune is low, you're easy to get infection, you have a significant weight loss. And in this point, you still have to take some heat cleaning herb, but the doctor will also give the moderate tonic herbs to make yourself strong. And these moderate tonic herbs, including the Chinese name is Di Huang, English is radish Romania, and then also the Huang Qi, the radish astragalus. Some people ask me this question before my talk. So actually this combination, the Huang Qi and Di Huang combination, it's actually a formula under the clinical trial in the US to treat the late diabetes. You can try, please go to the website to find out the information if you have interest. The last point I would like to mention is that because the point, the vision, the Chinese doctor and the modern medicine seeing these metabolic symptoms are very different. So the modern science and modern medicine, they were looking at it like a controlled blood glucose. That's why they give you the hypoglycemic treatment to make your blood glucose in a normal level. But the traditional Chinese medicine, they are looking at how to remove the heat and make it the body balanced again. So these herbs cannot replace the hypoglycemic medication because when your blood glucose is really high, you really immediately reduce to the normal level. And also, you need to ask your doctor. The consultancy is always very important. So in addition of the metabolic symptoms, we also can use herbal medicine to treat the other disease. Here are some interesting examples. The first one is the Danshan. It's also a famous one. And the product is Danson dropping pills. This is a famous anti-cardiovascular disease herbs. And these products is also under clinical trial in the US and has a lot of patients already tried. And I think it's effective and it's popular in the Asian area. The second one is the Job's tears. The Job's tears is actually something like the grate. It's a food and cuisine we normally use in South Asian, not only China, some South Asian countries. So the fat extract, the lipid extract of the Job's tears called the Kang Lai Te, people use to treat cancer, including the pancreatic cancer and the other ones, non-small cell lung cancer. Normally it's in combination with the chemotherapy. This is also have a evidence base, you can check it on the website of the clinical trial. The last example is the kudzu root. This kudzu root is famous in inhibit the alcohol consumption, so it can use to treat the alcohol abuse. And this also has been approved to be effective in diabetes. So we talk about the stories in China. Now we talk about the things happen in the US. Although the US doesn't have the long history and culture of using herbs, but still, nearly 1 in 5 adults in the US consume the herbal products as a dietary supplement. It's a huge population. So also in the market, there are thousands of herbal products available. But the herbal products in the US, they don't regulate it as drug. It means that you don't need the paperwork to get the government permit just to sell it and marketing, doing the marketing. So I list in this table, I list the most commonly used herbal medicines in the US, including the ginseng and ginkgo and garlic. And the things in the red box are associated with the traditional Chinese medicine because the people in China also use it. Okay, we talk about the good side of the herbal medicine. Now we're talking about the risks. First things I would like to say is that nature is definitely not equal to non-toxic. Yeah, so what causes the risk? The first and also the most important reason is because we don't have enough knowledge to know what things in the herb. I will share a story happened in Europe. A European woman taking TCM formula to lose weight, and then she died because of the kidney failure. Many years later, the scientists found that the woman's death is actually associated with a kind of chemicals coming from herb she was taking called the ascorbic acids. Actually, these kind of herbs are widely existed in a lot of kind of herbs. They not only cause problem in liver and the kidney, but also cause cancer. We just don't know about it until these bad things happen. Another example about the limit knowledge is about the licorice. I know people like it because it's sweet and you feel good when you take it. But be careful, the glyceric acids are not a good thing. You can take some, but the long dose, long-term exposure to this kind of chemicals is definitely not good for your health. So it's related, it may cause hypertension and the kidney failure. Just don't put yourself in that kind of risk. Okay, the other things, the other risks, where they come from. The other thing is, one of the most important side is the unclear interaction of the medication you are taking. Very few of the interaction of the herbal products and the medication are known. A lot of them are actually unknown. So it means that the risk is out of our control. Also, the risk may come in people use the wrong plant because the plant just looks very similar and sometimes the names are very confusing. You just misuse them. The final risk also may come from the contaminations because when the herbal products were produced, they might contaminate with heavy metals, the pesticides, and the mycotoxin. We just don't know. So how to avoid this risk? The first thing is always ask your doctor's suggestion whether you need to take it or not. If you don't need to do it, just don't do it. And the second thing is also very important. The scientists need to enhance the study and research about this herbal chemistry, especially the toxicology, and publish these results, always update these trustful data to the public to let them know that which one is good, which one is bad. This needs effort, not only the scientists, but also the funding agent provide us research funding to do research on that. Okay, in the last several sections, we already know that the scientific research is very, very important to make sure the efficacy and the safety of herbs. Still, there are so many scientific questions waiting for us. But we know with the development of technology, we need to do better than our grandma. these scientific questions, including what is the metabolic, what is the bioactive compounds, what is the mechanism, how is the herbal products play with the medications, and what causes the toxicity, and how to evaluate the quality, and how to share the knowledge to the world. It's not easy. It really needs efforts for scientists from different backgrounds to work together to figure it out, including the natural product chemists, analytical chemists, pharmacologists, toxicologists. That's why I get a lot of training in analytical chemistry, because I want to know more about our grandmas. So there are two major mentalities in the herbal medicine research. The first mentality is we are going to look for the pure compounds from the plant or herbs and leading to the chemical drugs. This is really popular in the last 50 years. So in this mentality or this approach, we will use the already known drug target or the model to screening the chemicals purified from the herbs one by one. And then we know the results, yes or no, to let us decide to move forward to the loop of the drug discovery. They are successful cases. Here, for example, is the Qinghao artemisinin. So the lady from China in 2015 awarded the Nobel Prize because of discovered this chemical to treat the malaria. And another case is the metformin. It's popular, right? Metformin, every people knows about it, but metformin is actually coming from a natural product, and it's a natural product, and the plant is popular in the Europe, not for human, it's for goats, for animal eating, and then they found animal behavior and discovered this one is good in lowering blood glucose. And another case is the Taxol. This is famous anti-cancer drug, still the first line. It's found in the Taxol family, the tree. And interestingly, this scientist, Dr. Yuan Li, is from North Carolina. He works in RTI International, and my boss, Susan Sumner, is a good friend of him. So, so from all these results, we know that some feature of this approach I want to summarize. First, normally the chemicals are separated from the extracts. So the interaction and the synergenic effect of the other compounds in the herbs are actually missing. So the pure compound and the original herb, their function are actually not equal. However, when you do this screening, some of the knowledge you do need come from the traditional medicine that decides which herb you need to do the research. Another thing is that the successful rate for this approach is really low, because from the beginning choose the right plant and going find the right candidate and then becoming a drug becoming a drug can be used for patients takes really long time, and the successful rate is not that many. That's the reason why the examples I show here are all in the Nobel Prize level. So the other approach, the other mentality is we treating the herbs as the food, nutraceutical, and the botanic products. We're still looking at the chemistry, but we're looking at it as an overall chemistry, a stable and consistent formula of the chemistry, and the overall efficacy based on the chemical composition of that herb. So in this approach, the most difficult part is that first, how can we get the herbs have a very quality standardized as a stable chemical composition? The second difficulty is how can we know the interplay, the network, the synergenic effects of different compounds in the herb, and how this interplay contributed to the effect. Therefore, I don't have so many successful cases for this example, but this is really the way to go. So in this slide, We would like to talk some of the government efforts to improve the quality standard of herbal medicine, because just now we already said the quality is really important. One of the examples is the HKCMMS program, and this program has been running for 10 years, more than 10 years. And the purpose of this program is to provide the scientific evidence-based reference standards to the most commonly used herbs. And this information will be shared to the general public, to the manufacturer of the herbal products, and also the business trader who want to sell the traditional herbs overseas. So the quality control standards covers the source and origins. It includes which plant are used, which part of the plant, how to harvest it, how to process, and also the morphology, how the herbs looks like, the original plant looks like, the slicing, the herb material look like, and also the chemistry, including the feature compounds, the fingerprints, the content limit of the bioactive compounds, and also the harmful substance, including to the contamination I mentioned, pesticide, heavy metal, and mycotoxins. If you have interest, you can go to the website to go to the HKCMS program. They have very detailed and a lot of information to let you understand how it's going on. In the US, we also have a similar program. It's supported by the USP. It's called the Herbal Medicine Compendium, but they just don't have so many species and not that detailed. Okay, from this slide, I will talk about my own research. Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
So from this slide, I will, I'm sorry. So from this slide, I will talk about my own research. My research is started from the quality standard research for a herb called the Lysicortes. This is a program, this is a project funded by the HKCMMS program. At the very beginning, we just want to do the standardization for the Lysicortes. So what is the Lysicortes? It is actually the root buds of the Lysi-chinensis and Lysi-barbarum. You might ask, what is that? But you know this red berry, goji berry. So Lysicortes actually is the root bud of the same plant produce the goji berry. The goji berry. Actually, the vegetable, the leaves of this plant, the goji berry leaves, can also use as vegetable, and it's good for your vision, good for your eyesight. So in traditional Chinese medicine, the Lysicortes is actually a functional food, can be used to cleaning the extra heat. That's why it's used in early hypertension and early diabetes and fever and sepsis. Unfortunately, before this project was going on, we don't know too much about this chemical and the evidence-based bioactive and composition for the Lysicortes. So after the support from the HKCMMS project, we found out the cucaamine A and cucaamine B, these two compounds, are actually the major compounds in the Lysicortes. That's why we proposed the more abundant one, cucaamine B, as the quality control marker. And we also established the fingerprint of this herb. It can be used to identify it. If you give me a cortex looks like this, and then I run the method I set up, I have a consistent fingerprint, and I will know, yes, that's Lysicortes. That's the point. So our proposal for the cucaamine B as the quality control marker and the fingerprint now has already been accepted for the HKCMMS compendiums. You can also find it online. Actually, I'm very proud that my research can be used and will be as an evidence to the world. So we already know that the cucaamines are the bioactive compounds for Lysicortes. The next question is that, does it really work for anti-diabetes? How does it work? So we purify this cucaamine B from the Lysicortes, and give them to the mice and to see how the result is. Also, we also test the lysocortex, the whole extract, and with comparison with the metformin and rosiglitazone, these two are the first-line anti-diabetic drugs used for the patient. After 9 weeks of the treatment, we got the result of the blood glucose and in the body weight. It was found, it's very interesting. We found that the KB, the cocaine B, can download the blood glucose pretty well. He's here pretty well, without increasing the body weight, which is good. So does metformin. But lysocortex, look here, doesn't show any effects on the blood glucose. The other first-line drug, rosiglitazone, shows really good effect in lowering the blood glucose, but the side effect is also very obvious. You can see they significantly increase the body weight of the mice. We also found that we found the weight change of some of the organs, the liver and the kidney. It means that rosiglitazone is really like the soft two agents. They're effective, but also bad for your body. These results really made me thinking, why? So why it's like that? How KB is working for anti-diabetes? What is the difference or the mode of action for KB and the other kind of first-line anti-diabetic drugs and also the lysocortex extracts? Is it controlling, lowering blood glucose or everything for anti-diabetes? Before answering these questions, we talk a little bit more about the diabetes. First, diabetes is a very complicated disease with systematic disorders in metabolism. So before your blood glucose mess up, you already have a bunch of systematic disorder, including the excessive nutrition and the chronic inflammation, the insulin signal mess up, and dyslipidemia. They happen before the blood glucose increase. So if we can pay attention for this chronic and systematic disorder as earlier as possible and do the prevention and management, as these things will get better. But the point is that how can we monitoring these complicated biological changes? The traditional way, no way. But we can use a technology named metabolomics, which is a technology can simultaneously monitoring up and down of a great number of metabolites in your body. So when we look at the profile up and down, we can know that things are changed. Therefore, including to understand the treatments, the response of treatments, we use the metabolomics to monitor the changes. This slide, it shows the intervention of KB on the dyslipidemia in the diabetic mice. The figures looks really complicated. I'm not going to explain it one by one, but I will give you the take-home messages. So we found that the KB can reduce the triglyceride and the phosphatidylcholine and also the cholesterol and increase the phosphatidylcholine. According to the change of the lipid profiles, we know that this effect of KB may be related to the improvement of the lipoprotein function to improve the lipid secretion, transpiration, and clearance, which is good for the lipid homeostasis rebuild. And we also found that it's very interesting, the KB, they intervene lipids in a pretty similar way as rosiglitazone, but in a much, much less potency, much, much weaker than the rosiglitazone. That's probably explain why KB doesn't have that much side effects and less toxic. So the second aspect we pay attention is the fatty acid metabolism. We monitor a kind of intermediate products of fatty acid metabolism called the acetylcholine to reflect the fatty acid oxidation level in your body. So the result shows that the KB, cocaine B, can improve the fatty acid oxidation, especially in the starvation for energy supply and rebuild the homeostasis. Still, KB works very similar to the rosiglitazone, but much, much less potent, also in the fatty acid metabolism. But the metformin is worked in a different way from KB and rosiglitazone. Our results show here they actually inhibit the gluconeogenesis because we found the intermediate products of the acylcarnitine related to the gluconeogenesis is decreased. So they are all showing the blood glucose-related function, but totally different mechanism. So the gluconeogenesis means that your body don't use your glucose, but started to digest your amino acid to produce glucose. Okay. The third aspect we're looking at is the profile of the inflammation, because we say the mix-up disorder inflammation is one of the key things. So in our finding, we also found that the KB can reduce the chronic inflammation, look like the blue here. And metformin doesn't work in that way. The reduction of the cytokines is much less. And rosiglitazone works really aggressive because all I get blue. In addition, we've also found that some of the cytokines, it reduced to the level even lower than the healthy mice. So it means that it worked too much, maybe related to the immune compromise is the side effect.
Sorry, you're saying a side effect of the KB is immunocompromising?
Rosiglitazone is rosiglitazone. Yep. So in last couple of slides, we talk about KB in three aspects. It's the dyslipidemia, fatty acid oxidation, and the cytokine inflammation. We didn't talk about lysocortex because we see this not working on the blood glucose. Is it really not useless? It really doesn't work at all? The answer is no. In this slide, I will tell you the story. So glucose is a good thing. It makes you happy. It's sweet. But it's also a bad thing because the glucose, when they metabolize, they have a lot of highly oxidative and active compounds. They can react with some of the amino acids, proteins, and peptides in your body and generate a kind of glycation, advanced glycation end product called the AGE. The AGE is the real criminal, make the diabetes complications, make you getting old, make the cardiovascular disease, make the Alzheimer's. So not only oxidated, it's more than oxidated. It may induce inflammation, oxidated, in addition some other plus peptides. Yeah. So when you get diabetes, you eat the anti-diabetes drugs. Does it mean you reduce your AGEs? The answer is no, because you can see the metformin and rosiglitazone in our animal study, their AGE level are actually really high. But we have the plus function for the lysocortex is that it can lower the AGEs in vivo, and it works even better than the KB. Is it cool? It's something outside the blood glucose. Okay, here is the last slide of the science part. We summarize the efficacy and mode of action of the lysocortex and compare with the other treatments, including rosiglitazone, metformin, and KB. They are actually very different, but the common feature, the overlap between the lysocortex and KB lies in the chronic inflammation and the anti-AGE. Both of them can downregulate this. It just made me think maybe this overlap, lowering the chronic inflammation AGE, it's related to the heat cleaning function in the Chinese property. The TCMA cannot reduce blood glucose that well, but it can remove the bad guys in your body and rebuild the balance. So from the comparison of the KB and the lysocortis in efficacy and mode of action, we also have a result and a little conclusion that the synergistic effect of the herbal compositions, herbal chemicals, is something you cannot ignore. And we do need to pay attention for that in future. So this is the last slide for the acknowledgement. Firstly, I will thank you my mentor, Dr. Susan Sumner, give me the chance to learn the cutting-edge advanced technologies, metabolomics, and use it to TCM research, and also the team who supports so much for we doing the research. And also Dr. Zhang is my Ph.D. supervisor who gave me the chance to study the lysocortis, and also the funding source, the HKCMMS, and also the MIDDK for this research. And finally, also thanking so much for all the people, all the audience coming today. I hope you enjoy this talk. Thank you. So it's the question section.
You're talking about your trials on mice, but as someone who's got that diabetes type 2, with this diagram, I'm interested in humans trying using your LYC and KB to help keep that diabetes in check.
Unfortunately, we're not moving that far to go to humans. So we first do it on the mice. But I think for the lysocortis doing on human, probably it's easier than the KB because the KB is a pure compound. We need more information to move it to. But the lysocortis will be promising because it's a functional food, has been used for thousands of years. It's safer to test in human. But KB, I would say we need more research and documents. The LYC, you can purchase. You can purchase in the website in Hong Kong. I can give you the information later. But it's just a functional food. Just a functional food in the U.S. It's not drug. Yeah. It's. Mm-hmm. Cell signaling?
Cell signaling, where the cells signal one another within the organ and between the organs, cell signaling. You have to use the herbs to help change or modify the cell signaling that's going on in the body?
Oh, yes, we know that. So we did do some of the research about the KB related to the cell signaling. And we published a paper in Journal of Functional Food Research, but I did not include the data here. That is related to the anti-oxidative effects on the neural cells. It's related to the Alzheimer. If you have interest, you can. I can give you the paper for that. We did have a paper published on the KB, but I didn't put it in this slide because it's not the focus for the metabolomics and in the vision of the holistic way. Mm-hmm.
Are there particular foods that provide LYC and KB that can be naturally in the diet?
You mean any food can contain the LYC and the KB? I don't think KB really existed in any species of the plant related to the LYC because it's a very unique compound in that specific family and species. So the LYC, according to the culture in the US, we don't really use it as a functional food. But in China, in Asian, yes, you can just purchase either the extract or the raw material from the market, like a vegetable. Did I answer your question? I don't really think you can do it in the US, but you can order the extract online from Hong Kong. Okay. So the goji berry is the fruit of the plants. So my research focus is mainly on the root. So some other people already did the goji berry. So the goji berry actually has the similar compounds of the cucaamines, but goji berry has a lot of sugars inside. So I don't really think the diabetic people need to take the goji berry because that's too sweet for them. Yeah. So the goji berry, if you don't have a diabetes, you're healthy, you take it as a food and consume, it's definitely not bad at all. Because just as the other kind of berries provide you the antioxidative properties from it. But if you get some specific disease like diabetes things, pay attention, don't take too much. Okay.
In China, are they doing scientific work such as yours, but looking at the herbal elements?
Yes, especially in the recent, I think 20 years, the technology in China also developed so fast. But it's two kind of arguments in China. One argument is like me saying that we need to modernize and make people in the world to share it. And the other voice is saying that we need to keep it as tradition. So we just use the way as our grandmother used. Why we need to know too much things about it. So it's two arguments. I'm not saying they're fighting, and I'm not saying which one is right, which one is not right. But it's just two arguments. I support the first one. A particular herb for. Oh, okay. I need to go back to really look because the term in your term, the disease, and the term in traditional medicine are different. So we need to go down to look at it. What is the match of the disbalance of philosophy in Chinese? Then I can provide the basic formula. We really need to find a TCM doctor to do a diagnosis because that's very similar to the precision nutrition and precision medicine. The case to case are different. Mm-hmm. Okay.
So, two questions. Do you prefer to recommend still getting acquiring the herbs from China, and as far as it being a more safe or secure source of herbs rather than what we are producing in the United States? And then also, this big arena of inflammation.
Mm-hmm.
So much coming out about that. How is that looked at in Chinese medicine? Is inflammation a ramification of what could be a lot of different ailments and problems, or is it looked at as a cause of different problems?
Do you mean that the contaminations and this kind of things influence the herbal quality? And is better in the U.S. can avoid these issues?
Yes.
Well, I will say it's a very difficult question because the really difficult thing for the herbal medicine is we don't have a knowledge and the scientific based knowledge on it. We don't really know what things to control. Because now we already know the heavy metals and mycotoxins, these kind of things is bad for your body. We know a certain kind of chemicals is toxic, so we can control that. But because of limitation of the knowledge, we can't control the things we don't know. So I don't think that makes difference between China and the U.S. because we are in the same boat. Mm-hmm.
I was reading a study, and I know it's a little different, but I'm wondering if it comes from Asian areas of grounding or earthing, or your physical body being in contact with the earth. My grandkids are out there all the time. My daughter lives in it, and that helping with inflammation. Is that something that came from Asia? That sounds so holistic. Earthing. And do you have any awareness of that?
I don't think so, because my focus is really focused on the evidence base on the herbs.
I'm asking you as a person from the Asian area and being in science.
So you mean the person from the Asian area has a special belief for the herbal medicine?
No,
Is that
there's a study about, it's called earthing,
uh-huh.
or grounding, and it's about being in contact with earth through your own skin, whether you're walking barefoot. Some people put themselves
You
in
walk
whatever.
barefoot out in the grass for about 30 minutes to an hour, and they say you can lower your cholesterol.
And you can lower your. So anyway, I actually read this study.
I need to say that I'm a very conservative scientist, so I cannot judge the things I don't know. But from my knowledge, I think that's not true. So maybe something that doing the clinical trial and know better about it, but it's out of my knowledge. So I would say I don't know.
It might be something along the lines of like macronutrients, where they put in root vegetables, certain times of year, choose to harvest the vegetables. So it's probably more like one of those ones. But they are doing studies, and I ate them down to surprise. Anyway, that's out of your mouth.
Yeah, that's out of my scope. Out of my scope.
Do we have any questions, specifically regarding diabetes, anything else you would like to ask her about the presentation? Thank you.
Okay.
Plants you used, the goji berry plants, did you try different varieties or one specific type?
The goji, the lysicotis.
There's different varieties, different cultivars.
It's actually a really good question. So in the HKCMM projects, we actually harvest the lysicotis from different locations in China, and then we overlap and collect it together and build up the fingerprint. So it represented the locations and the areas which can produce the lysicotis. So it's like an average, the fingerprint. We do that. Yeah, it's homogeneous.
So the fingerprint's different
Yes.
based on the geography.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. So it's actually not that hard and not that complicated at all. It doesn't really matter you're from the north and the south. They all have a cucurAMB and cucurAMA as the major compounds. It's just the ratio a little bit different. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you.